to the city budgets and cause some belt tightening that have to occur. So our first priority within the state budget is how are we going to reform public safety pensions to make sure that we're honoring those commitments, but then those costs aren't just turned down to the taxpayers at the local level. Just last Wednesday, the city of Davenport passed a budget that included an 8% increase in property tax rates. And of that 8%, the majority of that increase is strictly tied to the public safety pensions component within that. So I'd like to have a good discussion on, from our state representatives, how we're going to tackle this issue of public safety pensions. And I'll first turn it over to Senator Robbie Smith, who serves on state government. That's the committee within the state legislature that looks at those public safety pensions. And Senator, what conversations are you having within that committee? What reforms do you foresee being doable, but able to maintain the commitment that employers have made to their workers?
Okay. First, I want to give you a little history, and I'll tell you what we can do as far as reform. The 411, which covers fire and police, is what we're talking about. The genesis of the problem is they are assuming a 7.5% return on investment every year. The next, they assume that there's going to be 4.5% raise. And so what happens is every year the Board of Trustees comes out, they'll come out with their recommendations on what the cities has to pay. And at minimum, it's 17% of the employees' pay. And the last couple of years, and I have a sheet in front of me here that I'm going to pull out, it's risen. And it's used to be 17, and now it's 19. Next year, 24.7 and 26.2. So that's kind of the genesis of the problem. The other thing is there's a 1-to-1 ratio. The number of retirees to the number that pay in. And so what we can do to change it is we can go down the collective bargaining route, but there's going to be a lot of headwind, a good way to put it, on doing that. The next thing we suggested in the meeting an hour ago would be that we lower how much benefit the 411 people receive on new hirees. So I think that would be the easiest route. So we're going to take a look at that in the year to come in the State Government Committee, but I kind of want to go over why we're in this predicament and a couple suggestions to get through it.
I know the city of Davenport advocated strongly on capping the contribution at 17%. So you think that's one of the doable alternatives to the most recent issue, or let's have a good conversation around this. What do we think? Senator Sang, do you have comments?
I'd like to get by with that if we could, but I don't think it's doable. I do have one disclaimer on that USA News and World Report. They did not consider Eastern Iowa veterinary hospitals in that. Anyway, I doubt it. We will. The original legislation put the 17% minimum that they'd be responsible. That is the bottom ceiling. It can float as far as what is needed. I did submit a bill, an individual bill. The state, one thing Senator Smith did not mention was that the state had legally a contribution rate of 3.9% that they had to add to that, which would be $9.2 million. When we hit hard times, we had a 10% across the board reduction. Some of those things, they did gradually phase out that 3.9 contribution. My bill does have that 3.9 contribution being reinstated by the state, which is $9.2 million. League of Cities wants to add 1% contribution rate by any new hirees into the system. They are currently at a 9.4. This should go up to 10.4. We mentioned whether the unions would go along with, tinkering with the way it is now. I think they would be amenable, possibly on new hirees, to go 1%, not to mess with the ones that are already vested in the plan. So And that is an amendable bill that I put in, so anything could be added on to that. It's at least a start to try to stem some of the inflating problems we have with the pension system.
Thank you, Senator. Anyone else like to comment? Representative Winkler?
I'll say a little bit more. I think we need to put this in perspective. Our police and firefighters are our first responders. They are the ones we count on when it is most important that someone responds. And this happens to be their pension plan, but it also is their worker compensation plan. So our firefighters and our police officers do not pay into or do not require the cities to pay workers' compensation. In the funds are paid by our pension fund. Their worker compensation claims are paid by the pension fund. The other thing is that these employees, our police and firefighters, do not pay into Social Security. So this is an all-inclusive fund. And I want you to be, aware of that. This is their total benefit package. And it is there when, in fact, they are injured on the job. I think that we can certainly look at the costs, but these are also all local employees. These are not state employees. The state is holding the fund and running the fund, but these are all local employees that the benefits are offered for. As we think about why the costs are going up, it's cyclical with the economy. And so in order to keep the fund sound, which by law we must do, some years you have to pay more into it. We can talk about the benefit balance, but we need to think about who the fund serves, what other benefits they have access for, what it would be if we did not have a paid police and fire force in our community. Because these are the benefits for those employees that put their lives on the line for us. It is a cost of doing business, but it would be, I think, short-sighted for us to blame them for taking that responsibility for us.
Very good points. Thank you, Representative. Anyone else on the panel like to offer thoughts or comments on ways to become more efficient in this area? I will adjust the agenda just briefly and open it up to questions revolving around the state budget, revolving around pension reform. Anyone in the audience have any questions before we move on? Yes, Mary Ellen.
Before we move on from this particular subject, it seems to me that the legislature for several years have been talking about ways to reduce property taxes without harming city budgets. And to me, the state assuming this mandated amount of pension benefits would go a long way to reducing commercial and residential property taxes and doing no harm to municipal budgets, and in fact helping municipal budgets in a way that they can't be done any other way. And what I would like to suggest for discussion is that since this is a state mandated program, that the state, with some of the reserves that it has, begin to fund that program fully rather than sending down portions of it to the local government, which causes everybody's taxes in this room to go up 80% next year.
As a point of discussion, can we start maybe down Representative Thiede? Would you like to provide some comments?
To your point about the taxes going up and residential and all those others, I'm going to have to agree with you. And the 8% rise is going to be painful. I wish, and I'm going to be honest with you, when we started talking about this, which is when we had met with local government earlier, it was already in crisis mode. And so our problem was that we didn't have a chance, you're talking from then till now, to actually formulate a plan that would help out with this issue. So, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be evasive. I'm saying to you that I wish we had more time to try to figure this out. Because now what we're trying to do is make this solvable in the short term. And I don't know if that's any way to do that. I don't know if we can do that now. I don't know if that's possible. So if we're going to do this, there are a couple of things that I would see as part of, and I think someone had mentioned this, is that number one, raising that age level of when you can collect that pension. That's one. The other piece was something someone else had mentioned, new people coming in. Now those are things that are going to be happening in the future, and it doesn't solve it now. But we are at, I think, looking at the reserves, and I'm sure you've heard that a lot of that money's already accounted for. And so to do that now would be difficult to do. And so I understand that taking this 8% is going to cost the city quite a bit of money now. But unfortunately, because, and I hate to keep blaming this, it is the economy, and that's where we kind of sit at this point. And that's what happens with a lot of cities and pensions.
Yeah, I don't know if the speakers, is this working? Yeah. Okay, if you get close enough. Many private businesses have had to change the way they do pensions and profits sharing programs and how they set up their retirement benefits and what benefits they've been allowed to continue to accrue to their employees and their retirees, including what was at one time health care as a retiree. And most companies have had to change the way that they're doing these kind of things. I think allowing the firefighters to pay into Social Security is probably a very good idea. Having them have the ability to collect unemployment and then tiering the system so that new hires, you gradually raise the age. It's just like any other thing. You don't do all one thing at one time. But the problem is we need to do something now to start changing the dynamics of the line. And so I think we are going to put some money in the 411 fund. How much I could not tell you. But that said, I'm more concerned about actually changing the fundamentals of why we got to this position in the first place.
Sure, thank you. Representative Lycum?
Yes. As you know, Mary Ellen, we have the Republican control the House, Democrats in the Senate, and of course Republican governor, which in the long run I think that's good for the citizens of Iowa because both sides have to come to the table. It's early in the budget process. We have the governor's budget out. I haven't seen the targets from House R's yet. Monday. She said Monday they're coming out, and also with the Senate. And at the end, I think you will have 3 different budgets. I do know that Senator Danielson, a Democrat firefighter, chair of the State Government Committee, is working on some appropriation from the Senate side. Whether that gets any life, and then even if it did pass over there, whether they would take it up in the House, I don't know. But you make some valid points.
Senator Hammerlake, any comments?
Yeah, I was actually trying to stay quiet today, and I thought we had that agreement before we started that you wouldn't call on me. So thanks for reneging on that one, buddy. See if you get a Christmas card next year.
I didn't get one last year, so.
Yeah, it's because you called on me. With that being said, realistically, 40 years ago, the state of Iowa promised the counties that we would cover the firefighter pension program. We did. The legislature did. They were going to pay into it. Over time, just like everything else, mental health funding, you can go down the line. The state said, all right, counties, cities, you guys take it over. We'll go ahead and backfill it. And the county said, oops, we forgot to backfill it. Hence the reason why I have concern over property taxes. Anytime that states say that we're going to go ahead and buy down municipal property taxes, you need the state to actually allocate the money before you believe that they're actually going to pay it. With that being said, over time, states started to have budget problems. They pulled off. Cities have had more and more and more. And as a result of that, we're now in a pinch to where the requirement's been put on the cities and it's mandated by the state. So you pretty much have three options. We either mandate the cities to pay it, the state pays it, or we create a tier system, and Representative Linda Miller is correct, and we actually change the system. We have to shore up the accounts that we promised from the past. That's, the guys signed up for it, the girls signed up for it, we said that we were going to pay it, and we should. We got to shore up that 411 system. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, you made a promise, you got to cover it. Moving forward, though, in the tiered system, we can make a different agreement, and I think that we have bipartisan support on getting that done. The question is if we have the political motivation, and I think it's hitting the point now where that 411 system is about to go broke. So we've got about 8 months and about $43 million to actually make it work. So when it comes down to it, you got three options, and I think you're going to hopefully see something happen this year.
I spoke previously, but you had a good point, Mary Ellen. Storm Lake wrote a letter to us, and they this 411 system covers any city over 8,000 people. A lot of your city, you say, well, we should make it a priority. Well, you're only affecting these people with 8,000 and over, but most of the people that have cities under 8,000, a lot of these use a deputy sheriff. They come. I'm from Lost Nation, Iowa. We don't have a police department, so we don't have this problem. A deputy sheriff comes down and stuff like that, so we aren't faced with that. So I think if you did address this problem, it would pretty much address most of Iowa as a unit. And you might be a little bit accelerating it towards urban areas, but I think it does address a lot of people. Storm Lake made the point there is another alternative. They could privately contract with police systems. That I don't think anybody wants to go that way, but the school department privatized with the system to drive the school buses. They're not, they're privately done. Plus, some of your smaller cities could go to a volunteer fire department, which would pretty much, I don't think they have a pension plan. So I don't think any of us want to go this way. I almost think before we wade into this commercial property tax deduction, we ought to at least consider some of this money going towards this to alleviate it. That chunk of money that's going to go to lower commercial property tax, the Senate version is much less than the governor's and the House version. Maybe, hopefully we could adopt that and then also allocate some money towards this. So that's my suggestion.
I forgot to mention when I first spoke about this, I did get a chance to speak to Governor Branstad about this, and he said that he was open to it, and it's something that he wants to look into. So I just want to let you know that it looks good from the governor's point of view.
Representative Olson?
Well, I would agree with some of the earlier comments made. The whole system needs to have a retooling, both IPERS and police and fire. IPERS is not quite in as rough a shape, but we need to work our way, start with those coming into the system. We need to get to a defined contribution instead of a defined compensation plan, so that you can ride the market, you know, that everybody makes a little contribution, and we can get through the system that way.
Representative Austin?
I guess I really don't have much to add. Just echo some of the comments we already heard. So we'll keep moving forward on that and see what happens. My part of the budget is I'm vice chair of the Ag and DNR budget sub, and so ask me questions about Ag.
Good, good. Well, based on the comments, I know it's a very difficult problem. It's going to take a lot of our bipartisanship across the aisles to provide some relief to the cities in this area. But in the interest of time, we're going to move on to our second priority. I'd like to introduce John Gardner, who is a member of the Government Affairs Committee with the Chamber, and he's going to talk about economic growth here in the Quad Cities area.
Not surprisingly, economic development is a key chamber interest, and it has a 4-point priority program. One is to invest in infrastructure and transportation. Another is to expand and maintain economic development initiatives. These are all state priorities. The third is to promote balanced growth in the border communities, recognizing our unique situation. But the first of this list is to support the Rock Island Arsenal. And that's particularly significant today. Secretary of Defense Panetta is expected to announce today to confirm what the administration has made clear yesterday, that they are seeking another round of base realignment and closure commission process. One of Panetta is expected to say today that the first session would be in 12-13 and then followed by another round in 12-15. They already are dealing with a need to reduce the defense budget by about $500 billion. And they have hanging over their head the prospect of having to reduce it by another $600 billion because of the failure of Congress and the administration to come up with an appropriate debt reduction process. The arsenal, as you all know, is critical to the economy of this community.